Well, good afternoon. We're still having a few people signing on, but we're going to get started. Thank you for joining us for our Ventura County real estate market real estate agent panel. It's going to be a great session with a lot of good information for you. I'm Corby Gage, Executive Director of Coastal Housing Partnership. And with us today is Kim Pascage, who is our Program Manager for Coastal Housing Partnership. And our three panelists from Ventura County are Liz Donnelly with RE/MAX Gold Coast, Deborah Downey with Sotheby's, and BJ Ward with Comfort Real Estate. So thank you, panelists, for joining us. Deborah, Liz, and BJ are all part of Coastal Housing Partnerships Network. And as part of that network, these agents contribute a portion of their commission to employees of our member companies. So this is a great opportunity to have some support with your closing costs and to have a really great real estate agent working with you. So the format for today's webinar is I'm going to be asking Liz and Deborah and BJ some questions about the process of buying a home and how you can be most competitive in today's real estate market. The remainder of our time together will be to get your questions answered. So we think that's most important. You came with questions and we want to answer those and really target those. So you can put those questions in the Q&A and Kim will be monitoring those. We're going to be recording today's webinar, so if you want to go back and look at that, we'll be sending that out to all of our attendees. We'll be sending you a link to that. So the webinar format means that your cameras are off and your microphones are off. So if you do have questions, as I mentioned, put them in the Q&A. You can ask your questions anonymously if you like. There's a little box that you can check for that. And feel free to put those questions in at any time during our time together. You're not going to interrupt us. Once we get to that question period, Kim will be able to field those questions. So before we get started, I cannot stress enough the importance of working with a real estate agent. A lot of times people will think, oh, I can find a house without an agent, and there's so much information on the internet, and that is true. But I would not try to take this major of a step in life without an agent. This is really important. You need to have a professional working with you. And most likely the seller is going to have an agent representing them. And if you don't, then you're at a disadvantage already. So they provide so much in terms of support through the process and just helping you know how much to offer for a home, how to be competitive, that this is a really important part of your home buying team. So I definitely recommend working with an agent. So before we get started, we'd like to take an anonymous poll just to determine where today's attendees are in the process of buying a home. In that way, we hope to gear our comments towards the answers that will best meet your needs. So we're just taking this short poll and we'll be sending that out to not to you all, but to the panelists so they know who's here today. So just take a moment to finish up that poll. Okay, Kim, do you think everyone's participated that wanted to?
Yeah, there's a few more, but yeah, looks like we're good. I'll end that poll for you.
Okay. All right, great, thank you. So just to get started, I'm sure you're curious as to who's on the panel. Liz, would you please share a little bit about yourself?
Sure, I'd be happy to. My name is Liz Donnelly. I grew up in Ventura. I've been a realtor with RE/MAX since 2004, so for quite a while now. And I work primarily in Ventura, Oxnard, Camarillo. and I love my job. Have a great time helping buyers and sellers, and I've been with Coastal Housing Partnership for several years.
Great, thank you. BJ, would you share a little bit about yourself?
Sure. It's nice to meet everyone, even though I can't see you. I can see the participant number and you're there, and I'm honored to be here, and I'm honored to be a part of Coastal Housing. Just like Liz, I've been a realtor since about 2004. I work with Comfort Real Estate, which is an independent boutique office serving all of Ventura County and West LA County. And we're an office of about 40 agents, and we love what we do. We love helping families, and we have a good time doing it. So thank you. And again, it was nice to meet you.
Thanks, BJ. Deborah.
Hello, everyone. It's nice to be here. I'm honored, Corby, that you invited me. And like Liz and BJ, I got licensed in 2004, and I work with Liv Sotheby's International Realty. I've also worked with a boutique company, and I was with Keller Williams and Troop in the past, in the beginning of my career. I grew up in Ventura. I've raised my kids here. I'm now a grandmother, and they're here in Ventura. So this is my home. I know it well, and I service the county. I also have a vacation home in Pine Mountain Club. So if anyone's interested in that area, I can service you there as well. And again, I'm happy to be here, and I've helped a lot of people, and hope that you get something really valuable out of today's webinar.
Thank you. As you can see, we have a group of experienced real estate agents here today to share information and to share their knowledge, and they've got a wealth of information. So BJ, let's start with you. What should someone do to prepare to purchase a home?
Well, that's a great question, and it's a question that's vitally important. And I think having a plan is it's obviously very important. And like you alluded to, Corby, in the beginning with your note, a lot of times it's easy to want to start that search online with some of the resources that we have, and the fact that we have such an accessibility to information with Redfin and Trulia and Zillow. But the fact of the matter is, if you are serious about starting your search and starting the house hunt process, you need to have a conversation with a lender and or a home finance mortgage expert. And what that individual will do is they will take into account your income and your debts and your assets, your job history, your credit score, and they will, for lack of a better term, spit out a number that you qualify for. And that's what you will use to go out and to start your house hunt. And they will also provide a corresponding number for your monthly payment. In the industry, we call that PITI, but it amounts to your principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. So once you have that, you'll have a better guide of kind of the next steps, and then you can really be serious about house hunting. And I'm kind of going to bounce around a little bit, so just kind of follow me here. But with your offer, you will also need to provide what's called a proof of funds, and it's a statement that shows your down payment and your closing costs, and that can be in the form of a CD or a checking account or a saving account or an investment account. But that's typically what you will need with your offer, and that essentially goes hand in hand with your pre-qualification letter. I think another thing to consider, and a lot of times this gets kind of lost in the shuffle, but if you're getting ready to start the house hunting journey, that probably means that you're a renter. So I would encourage you to have knowledge of what the terms of your current lease are. You want to know what, if you do look to break that lease, if there's a penalty that goes with that. If you're looking to just trying to plan, maybe going out of your lease and into a month to month, which would certainly that your monthly rent would likely increase, but it provides you flexibility if you are serious and you've decided that you are going to, pursue owning a house. I think that's a very important thing that sometimes gets lost in the shuffle. And again, just bouncing around a little bit, one thing that we're kind of seeing a shift in, and I think this is probably one of the first times that this would have been broached in this arena doing a panel, is that we're seeing a shift in some of the buyer love letters or the intro family letters, which have historically, they've kind of aided in the competitive advantage of writing an offer. it kind of takes away the focusing on the terms and the price, and then it kind of introduces a family to a home and draws a connection to the homeowner itself. But we're seeing a shift in that. And matter of fact, in early October in the state of Oregon, they actually outlawed those letters. So that's something that I know in years past, a lot of your friends and family wrote those letters and they accompanied the offer. But I wouldn't be surprised in the next several years if we see those become much more uncommon or outlawed altogether in the state of California. And a couple of other things. And this is really just with in preparing yourself in the mindset as you have made the decision to become a home buyer, is that you have to kind of, in this particular market, you have to be in it for the long haul. And I don't want to sugarcoat the market at all, but it's somewhat of a challenging market. It's not like how you see on House Hunters where you go out and you look at 3 houses and you just pick one and that's the one that you get, and then you just get your keys and you move right in. That's not necessarily the reality. The reality of the market is it's a seller's market. So there's a lot of competition for a very finite number of homes. And I don't say that to discourage you in any way, shape, or form, because it will happen. I'm delivering keys to 3 new homeowners this week. I know Deborah and Liz are extremely busy, and we're committed to helping our clients get in, but it's not what you see on reality TV. And the last thing I'll say, and it goes with the same idea as mindset. It is going to be a little bit of a challenge, but you will get your keys at some point in time. So make sure that you just enjoy the process. I remember when my wife and I, when we were having our daughter, just to draw a comparison, and we'll move on to the next question. But I was told that, BJ, during the first year and a half, you're going to have a lot of sleepless nights, and you're going to have times where the tantrums are going on, but it's temporary. Like, they'll grow out of that stage and they'll become young, wonderful little people. And now we have an amazing 12-year-old. And I look at the house hunting journey right now as the same thing. I mean, there'll be some ups and downs, and there will certainly be some frustration points, but you will get your keys. And I could promise you that there's no feeling like the feeling of getting your keys to your first home. So just hang in there. So we'll talk a little bit about the market a little bit later on down the line, and I'll pass it on to some equally important Q&A. Thank you.
Yeah, just a quick follow-up, BJ. So you mentioned the pre-approval with the lender and how important it is to talk to the lender. How soon would someone do that? If they think they're not ready to buy for maybe a year, would it still be a good idea for them to check in with a lender and kind of get a game plan together?
I would think so. I mean, it'll just give you, it's a no hassle, no cost, type of experience. And I think, so even if you are about a year out, I think it's a good exercise to go through. It'll at the very least, let you know what you need to work on to prepare yourself, to be in a position a year down the line. So certainly, and there's a lot of great lender partners that are part of coastal housing. So it's the sooner the better.
Okay, great. And there's no charge to get a pre-approval. You may be charged for a credit report, but that's a small amount. But there's no charge to get a pre-approval from a lender. So it is a good step to take, and it gives you a lot of great information that you might have some preconceived notions about how much down payment you need, or what's involved with the home buying process, or you might think your credit's better than it is. There might be a mistake there. Those are things that the lender's going to identify. So that's a really important first step in that prep. And appreciate you bringing that up, BJ. Okay, Liz, let's go to you. So what should someone look for in a real estate agent, and what questions would you ask when you're interviewing an agent?
That's a good question. And I had some notes to answer it, but what BJ said made me think of some other additional items to add to it as well. It's really important to find an agent who has experience and who can guide you correctly. There are so many real estate agents out there. I know personally, I have family members, neighbors, friends from growing up that are realtors all in town, and most people probably know several realtors. So it's tough sometimes to choose somebody by their professional skills versus maybe your best friend or your neighbor is a realtor as well. And they might be great, but these are important things that I think you should look into when you're choosing one. One is experience. Doesn't mean you have to be a realtor as long as the three of us have been, but just somebody who has experience and has been through this enough times to guide you. Area knowledge. I think somebody who really knows a town or a neighborhood that you want to be in is going to be able to guide you better than somebody who doesn't. Sometimes I do help clients who are outside of my really focused area, and I find that I just don't know it quite as well as I do the towns that I'm really familiar with. So if you can choose somebody who really knows the area you want, I think that would be really important. I think somebody with a business background would be a good choice. Getting into the process of looking for a home and the motions that BJ just took us through are really important. But then once an offer is accepted, contractually, there's so much that goes into purchasing a house. You want to make sure that you're well protected by somebody who understands disclosures and inspections and can really guide you through the business aspects of it. So business background is very important. Along with that come negotiating skills. Of course, we all want the most we can get and pay the least we can and make sure that we're well cared for that way. So you want somebody who can negotiate for you. Needless to say, somebody who is a realtor full-time is probably more beneficial than somebody who is doing it on the side of another job. Somebody familiar with the inventory. It's really nice if the realtor you choose is familiar with the homes that come on the market, maybe can take a look at them so that when you ask questions, they are already familiar with some of the houses and can rule some out. Prompt communication, answering your calls or returning calls in a short amount of time is very important because these houses are going quickly. And of course, we all want our questions answered right away. Anyways, and then lastly, for my notes things that I would think of is somebody who has a personality that you can see yourself getting along with. Your realtor is somebody you're going to work closely with for maybe a short amount of time, maybe a very long amount of time, but hopefully they'll be your realtor for your life and for your friends and your family members in the future. So you want somebody that you can see yourself picking up the phone and asking a question anytime and getting along with well when you talk with them. So I would say those are my top choices.
Good. I was thinking, I was just jotting a note while you were talking, Liz, about that connection and how important it is to have a really good connection with your real estate agent, with your lender. That's so important. And it's kind of a chemistry, really. And who I might work with might be very different from who someone else might work with, just because of how we connect, how we communicate. And so I'm glad you brought that up and how important that connection is for all of your home buying team.
It really is. And I think that I can speak for the three of us that there are times that there are people that I would like to work with and they may not feel that connection with me. And that's okay. That's just human nature. It's one of the important parts of finding a realtor that you want to work with is somebody you connect well with.
Great. And now, one of the things that we tend to think with, an agent is they're going to find the home that you are going to make an offer on. They're going to help you make an offer, and then you're on your own. That is so not true. And there's, so much involved in terms of once you're in escrow and how that agent supports you through that. Is that a good question to ask them, or how would you ask someone who's an agent if they're how active they are through that process with you?
Well, I don't know how to ask them. Well, I guess you could just ask them the question is, how involved will you be during the transaction? Will I be working with you one-on-one once our offer gets accepted, and what can I expect? But definitely the bulk of our skills comes into play once an offer is accepted, in my opinion, because we get into having to understand construction through inspections. You need to be able to recommend very good people who are specialized in roofing or an electrician or general home inspector, plumbers, whatever it may be. And you just want to make sure that you have somebody who's experienced in all these aspects in order to guide you correctly.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, Liz.
Welcome.
Deborah, what's the process of finding a home, including making an offer? What can someone expect from this process?
Well, that's a great question. As BJ alluded to, the first thing you want to do in this market in particular is make sure you're pre-approved and you're working with a lender that you know, like, and trust. And the pre-approval process is, as he mentioned, providing income information and just having a conversation. There may be programs that lender may be able to tell you about. You may find that you don't have to put as much down as you may think. So there's a lot that goes into that, but the outcome will be a pre-approval letter. Once you have the pre-approval letter, you are in a position, a very strong position, to actually go out and shop and find the home that you want. Now that process is going to take place with the realtor. So working with your realtor, you're going to have some conversations, sitting down. Your agent, if you have a good agent, is going to want to know about your lifestyle. Do you have elderly parents that maybe can't climb stairs? That may impact what kind of house you get. Do you have children that need to be in a certain school district? Did you just relocate for a job? So those are the kinds of things that are going to be discussed. Do you work from home and need a home office? That may impact the rooms. So it's not just about bedrooms and bathrooms. It's also kind of about the lifestyle. Then the agent is going to go through the inventory. As Lizzie alluded to, us full-time realtors, we go out, we know about inventory, not just from the MLS, but other agents that we network with, things that are coming on the market soon. There's various ways that we have, different inventory, and we can keep that in our mind. We go on broker tour when there are properties that are listed, typically in Ventura on Thursdays. We go out and we look at the new inventory. These houses, from the consumer perspective, they're usually only on the market for a couple of days. There may only be 1 or 2 open houses in this particular market. So it's important to act fast. And that's where that pre-approval is so crucial. If you just go out shopping and wait until you find the house you like and then try to get pre-approved, you're probably going to miss out on that house. So it's just kind of a quick window of opportunity. Once you see it, you have to sort of act quickly if you like it and submit the offer. So how does that work? The process on submitting an offer is, once you've talked to your realtor, the needs are identified and some properties are matched up, that pre-approval letter is going to get submitted for the seller to get the appointment booked. We go out and look at properties. You and your agent will go look at properties that may match, and you'll find the one that you like eventually. Hopefully not too long, and you'll have a good idea of what you want. So the offer gets submitted along with the pre-approval and the proof of funds, as BJ alluded to. That proof of funds, if you're doing a cash deal, would be the entire amount that it would take to purchase the property. Most people don't have a full cash offer, and so therefore they're going to provide maybe a bank statement that shows the proof of the down payment that will cover it, and the pre-approval letter. That gets submitted, and what happens is when the offer is accepted, before you submit the offer, you're going to have a conversation with your realtor too about how much do I offer? Well, that's going to depend on the property, how long it's been on the market. A good realtor is going to try and find out if there are other offers on the table. So it's a case-by-case basis, and then a strategy will be decided in terms of what terms you have to work with. So as Liz mentioned, in the contract, there are a lot of variables. How long will the escrow be? How long will the inspection period be? We have 3 things called contingencies. When you write an offer, it's subject to those contingencies being removed prior to close of escrow. So the first thing is you write the offer, you're going to put down a good faith deposit. It's typically 1 to 3% of the offer price. Is that refundable? Yes, if you have not removed all your contingencies. But in the contract, there are certain timelines that you'll be expected to remove those contingencies as you're acting in good faith. So the first inspection contingency is going to be where the seller provides all the disclosures, all the material facts that they know about the property. If there's an HOA, you'll look over, rules and regulations. You'll have a home inspection, your physical home inspection, and you'll get a report back to see if there's any defects with the property. So getting pre-approved, that's the first step. Once you have an accepted offer, that kind of begins the process. An escrow will be opened. Your good faith deposit will go to escrow. Escrow is a third party, a neutral third party. They sort of make sure that everybody is doing their contractual duty. They will hold your deposit. And the agent is going to walk you through your timelines, and a good agent is going to be with you, guiding you the whole way. Meanwhile, you'll be working with your lender, submitting additional documents that they may need during the process, because pre-approval is step one. And then there's actually going through the whole loan process all the way to funding. So your agent will be able to discuss those things with you. And as BJ said, you will get to the point where you will get your keys. So as we're going through inspections, you're looking at all these documents, signing off, or perhaps we need to go back and negotiate some repairs. And that's all done within that inspection contingency. Once we're all clear on that and all parties are in agreement, that gets removed. Your lender is going to order an appraisal. That's your other contingency. In this market, there have been cases where that is not something that we write into the offer. Again, this is where it's really important to have a good realtor representing you, because there are terms that are going to make a difference as to whether you succeed in that multiple offer situation. And again, I'm trying to just touch over the surface. So you're going to have more in-depth conversation with your agent. But if there is an appraisal contingency, the bank sends the appraiser out. Let's assume it appraises at value. Then we can go ahead and remove that contingency. The last thing will be your final loan approval. And that is towards the end of the escrow process. Once you have final loan approval, underwriting has looked at everything. Like I said, there's going to be paperwork going back and forth between you and your lender. You're going to have paperwork between you and your agent. And then you're going to have escrow sending you paperwork. And the escrow paperwork will be things like, how are you going to be taking title? Just having you sign off on different documents. And again, your agent, your lender, and your escrow officer are going to partner with you and help you through all of that. And then lo and behold, you'll do a final walkthrough and you will actually get your keys, and that'll be a great celebration. And I know as an agent, that's one of my favorite parts of the job, is getting to that finish line and getting keys to someone, especially a first-time buyer, because it's very exciting. So if there's any other questions, please let me know. I hope that answered most of them. And I'm trying to just do it in a short time. So
Yeah, that was very thorough. Thank you, Deborah. And I think BJ, Liz, Deborah, you gave us a really good feel for the process, what's involved with buying a home. I'm going to ask the same question of all of you now, and we'll start with Liz. What's the real estate market like today? I mean, I think that's what so many people are curious about. Can they get into this market? Is it so competitive? What's the market like?
I think that the market is less scary to get into than you all who are watching and wondering may think. There are a lot of what you could call horror stories of people writing 20 offers and not getting an offer accepted and having a really hard time finding a home. But then you also have a lot of folks who don't have a huge down payment, are first-time home buyers, and are finding things, relatively quickly. You may need to be patient and not fall in love with the house you write your first offer on. It may not work out, but it may. So I say you just go into it being prepared, doing all the things that we've discussed, having a pre-approval with a good lender, and having a good realtor, and saving enough for a good down payment. And you will get an offer accepted and you will find your home. I think personally that even though prices are at an all-time high, our interest rates are going to be rising soon, and it will change affordability. So if you are ready to buy, you want to buy, I say you just jump into it and go through the process, and you'll be happy you did.
That's a good point, Liz. BJ, what's your take on the real estate market today?
Well, Liz, I think that's a very well said, understanding and a good synopsis of what's going on. I think it's important just to talk about, April 2020. I think that we were already in a seller's market pre-pandemic, but we had this period of a month and a half, and this was an anomaly to me, and it's hard to explain for a lot of people, but during that period of April 2020 into May, it's like the market kind of stood still, and people were trying to figure things out. Where's this pandemic going? What's going to happen with my job? And lo and behold, as we make our way out of May, it just kind of catapults into what we have today. And I'm, again, not going to sugarcoat it. It's an extreme seller's market. It really is. But I think Liz kind of summed it up. I mean, it's definitely no cause to be concerned. You may take you two offers. It may take you 15 or 20 offers. But it isn't a seller's market, and it's surprising. But now we're starting to see a lot of trends that lend itself to the market that we're in, like Liz alluded to, very low interest rates and a very, very healthy economy. So the follow-up a lot of times to the question of what's going on with the market is it's a good time to buy? And I have a counter question, a rhetorical question, if you will, and that's do you know what market is even further out of whack than the residential resale market? And the answer to that would be the rental market. I mean, I don't think any market is as active as the rental market right now. Our office gets more calls on rentals certainly than we do with residential resale. So, like I said, interest rates are low. The economy is healthy, and it goes back to the fundamentals of owning real estate. Owning a home and owning a home and investing in real estate is still single-handedly the most the best way for an individual and a family to create wealth. And being in this business since 2004, I see it day in and day out. I see just by the function of someone needing to have a roof over their head, but making the decision to own versus rent, I see what that does in the long term. I've seen owning real estate pay for children's college. I've seen people fulfill their dreams just by owning real estate. So if you have the decision to rent or to buy, I also heard a saying, it's not timing the market, but it's your time actually in the market. It will always be a win-win owning real estate. So now is certainly, and it continues to be a good time to own and buy real estate.
That's a great point, BJ, talking about what we're paying in rent right now. And when you think about how high rent is, it's like, well, what could that rent payment be in terms of a mortgage payment? What would that look like for a home loan? What could you get for that? So it's not like you're making a huge leap from, oh, I've got this really cheap rent to now I'm having this really expensive mortgage payment. Our rent is high. And so it might not be that hard to shift over.
Well, Corby, that's certainly one side of it. But the other side is you're not paying someone else's mortgage. You're investing in yourself. You're building equity. You're investing in the long-term wealth of your family. I think that's something that's very important to understand. You got to look at the long term.
Right. Good point. Deborah, what's your take on the real estate market today?
Well, I've been around since 2004. Prior to that, I bought my first home in 1995. So it's a strong seller's market, yes. Interest rates are low, prices are high. Like I said, I've been in Ventura County a long time, my whole life. I have kids that are grown and now own homes, and grandkids coming up the line. I bought in 2008 my most recent home, which I'm currently renting out, but I bought it when it was the worst time to buy, knowing that the market is cyclical. So what I have found that even in the worst markets, which I'm not saying this is a great market, it has been a very strong market the last couple of years, as BJ pointed out, pre-pandemic. I remember having escrows as the pandemic hit. We're doing our final walkthrough, and one of my listings that I had, the agent wrote the offer, but we had this new coronavirus addendum that was brand new. We didn't know what was going to happen, but people's lives go on. People have needs. They get married, they move jobs, they get divorced, people pass away. Unfortunately, these are life events that cause people to either need to move or to buy or relocate. So no matter what the market is, as BJ said, it's the timing, and it's your timing. If you need a place, I would submit to you right now, while rates are low, seriously consider investing, because rents, they're going to continue to go up. We don't have rent control in Ventura County. Because it's a seller's market, people that are renting are at risk for the seller deciding to cash out and sell their property. I've seen some of that happen, and people having to find other places to rent. Having kids here, I have seen their rents go up, and that's why I said we've been fortunate to be able to get them into a property. But it is hard for people starting out when your income's not real high and you're just starting in your career. So that's why it's really good to talk to a lender and find out what programs are available. We do have a couple of communities here in the county that are considered rural. For example, Oakview, it might fall under a USDA loan program. So you have to do what's best for you, but I would say definitely get informed. Speaking with a lender will give you the financial perspective on what you're able to do. And if you're not ready now, where you need to be. So between finding a good lender and having a good agent, you know, you'll be able to get into a property, but you'll just need to know what it takes to do that. And the market is cyclical. Again, you just have to remember that we've all been here through 2007, 2008, us three agents is who I'm referring to. So we've seen, you know, prices go high and then prices go low. I'm not expecting us to have any kind of a crash. We have great rates. Our economy is strong. So I feel like it's been a great market. It's just that the prices have gone higher. Supply and demand is really what it comes down to. And we live in Ventura County near the beach where our weather is beautiful. So a lot of people do want to come here. And that's probably why some of us are still here after all these years. And investing for the long haul is really the key. You know, if you're trying to flip, this is definitely not the market. But if you're trying to get your foot in the door, you know, 10 years from now, you'd be surprised at the wealth that you will have built. And as BJ says, you're not paying someone else's mortgage, you'd be paying your own.
Great, thank you. That just highlights how important it is to have this great dream team working for you. Get a great lender, a great real estate agent. So important having, you know, folks who really are in your corner and working hard for you. It looks like we have a number of questions in the Q&A. Kim, let's go to those now so we have time to get those in.
Yeah, thank you so much for all your questions. These are great questions. So I'll just kind of go down the list. The first question is, typically, how many offers have you seen for a house in the market and which offers are being accepted?
BJ, you want to take that?
Sure. So how many offers are we seeing? I don't, there's no set number. I mean, sometimes I see a lot. I see, 15, offers on a home. And it's all predicated on where it's initially priced at. So I will say that as of recent, and I don't know if Deborah and Liz can corroborate this or not, I think that we're still seeing a situation where there's multiple offers, but it's not as many offers as we saw in certain periods in 2020. So I think that's a welcome sign for a lot of agents. So, just the numbers are more so in buyers' favor. So instead of competing with 12 or 15, maybe you're competing with somewhere between 4 and 7. So the numbers are much more manageable. And Kim, I'm sorry, what was the second part of that question?
Yeah, and which offers are being accepted?
I guess it would be the offers that the seller would deem to be the strongest. We did see situations, again, primarily in 2020, to where potential buyers were doing things like removing the built-in contingencies that are a part of the offer. So removing the appraisal, removing inspections, and having a really high down payments and high earnest money deposit amounts. So those are things that would appear for your offer to be stronger compared to others. And that's a situation when the seller would accept that, compared to others with lower down payment and those who wanted to keep their contingencies in place. I don't think that's a market that any of us like to see as practitioners. Again, I don't want to speak for Deborah and for Deb and Liz, but we'd like to have those contingencies be a part of the agreement, because I think that's the way just to operate and to transact and conduct business in a fair way. But it really is just whoever's bringing the seller the strongest offer. A lot of times it's who has the most money down.
So BJ, is it not necessarily true then that the highest price might get the nod? Is it more, maybe it's the length of escrow or some other terms or other aspects of the offer that make the seller find a particular offer more attractive?
Yeah, it's certainly not always the highest price, although that's what would logically would make you think that's the offer that a seller would choose. But other things that are appealing to a seller are not necessarily waiving all the contingencies, but maybe shortening those periods. from 17 days to 10 days and just saying, hey, we're committed to doing our home inspection and getting our appraisal and some of those things done, quicker. A lot of times sellers would like to close sooner rather than do a lengthier 60-day escrow, for example. They would like to close, and I've been seeing a lot of 21 and 25-day escrows. That's also very appealing to a seller. So there's just a lot of terms, and Deborah, let's kind of piggyback on this, but there's a lot of terms that a seller would look at to make the determination on which offer to choose. Usually they're looking at price, but there's other factors. It's a combination, if you will.
Great, thank you. Kim?
Yeah, someone is asking, this is a great question. Are there some local first-time home buyer assistance programs that they should be aware of, or any down payment assistance?
Liz, you want to take that one?
I don't know of any first-time homebuyer assistance programs that are available at the moment. There may be some Cal HFA programs, but I have not seen in this market to receive offers or writing offers with down payment assistance, probably in the last year or so in general. Maybe Deborah and BJ have had a different experience, but I've seen a lot of offers go by my desk one way, either writing them or receiving them, and I don't know of any programs at the moment.
Deborah, have you seen any?
Yes, and I haven't checked into it recently. The city of Oxnard had some first-time housing programs available if you were purchasing in the city of Oxnard, and perhaps if you were already resident. And their housing authority, Connie Hernandez, is the person that was sort of the point person there. I did have some first-time buyers that utilized that, and the lender can help with that. That particular program involved, they would have a first mortgage and then a second mortgage that would be due upon sale or something. So I don't know if that's still happening. I know City of Ventura, the last time I checked, did not have anything in particular. And then, as Liz mentioned, Cal HFA, that's a loan program. They may have something. There are a couple lenders I'm sure that we can all think of that might be a resource to check into that.
I think that's right, Deborah, and Liz, that's probably the best source of knowing that information is checking with your lender. They're the ones that are going to be seeing those, and that would be a great question for your lender. Okay, Kim.
Yeah, the next question is, when will it be a buyer's market again? Do you guys have a crystal ball?
Deborah, do you want to take that loaded question? When will it be a buyer's market again? Well, I guess that's a big question in the sense that we would have to have a lot of inventory for it to be a buyer's market. So when supply is more plentiful, then I believe we will have a buyer's market. And what does that mean? It's hard to say. There's, a lot of things that go into play. Every time we get a new president, it seems like, that might determine, how the market is. If the stock market takes a hit, we have a good economy right now. I don't know if we will, we are starting to see, prices at the gas pump go up a little bit. So I think we're starting to see a little bit of signs of inflation, but housing is still, low interest rate. So I again go back to, in your life, what is the timing that works for you? And then again, meeting with a lender and a realtor, because there are different strategies. As the question that BJ answered initially, what does a seller accept in terms of an offer? What are we seeing? Sometimes it's the seller's circumstances too. They might have to, hit the road and take a job on the East Coast and be there by a certain time. That might change what kind of offer they receive. There may be somebody that's looking to have a house built or something. Maybe they need a little time in the property. So there's a lot of variables. So we don't have a crystal ball, but I think right now we're really seeing a supply and demand. There's a lot of demand and not a lot of supply. And part of that is sellers, when they sell, they want to have a place to live too. So I think that just once we get more inventory and people get their homes out there, they also say the construction industry is behind a little bit on building. So we just need more units to sell. And
Well,
then
I think
there
the
will
thing
be,
too that makes us, puts us in a buyer's market now is our interest rates. So, that's not something to be overlooked, is those low interest rates really support the buyer. And
Yeah.
it is competitive, multiple offers, but we've got great interest rates. So that kind of balances things out a bit.
that's the thing. I think it's just the multiple offers, and that's how I'm interpreting seller's market versus buyer's market. The competition, it's okay. Competition's healthy, but you just need to be prepared and have, the resources, a good agent, a good lender by your side, and be prepared to act quickly. And again, that's a conversation you'll have when you're in the process. But there is strategy, and people are closing escrows each day. So don't lose hope. It's just a matter of being informed and getting in there,
Great. Kim,
Yeah,
what's next?
due to the seller's market, are homes being sold as is?
Liz? What do you see?
Surprisingly, I would say they are not. Although it's very competitive to get your foot in the door as a buyer. In my experience, once the offer is accepted, it's been a very standard sale. When we're writing offers, we may leave out some things that we would have included in a different type of market. For example, asking for termite repairs to be done. But once we do our inspections as buyer's agent and the buyer, and we find that there are things needed to be repaired, buyers are requesting them, and sellers are generally being a bit more flexible than I would have expected in this kind of market. The prices have become so inflated that my opinion is that sellers are so pleased with the offer they're accepting that they're more open to giving a $5,000 credit toward repairs, or paying for that fumigation, or other things that otherwise they might have been a little bit more rigid about. I think that they're glad to have this buyer in this price, and they're eager for them to stay in contract with them. So they're saying yes. Not
That's
all,
encouraging. That's
not all,
encouraging.
but I think so.
Kim?
What does it mean when a home does not appraise at value to the buyer?
BJ, can you take that one?
Sure. So the appraisal is a contingency of the agreement. So if the home does not appraise, then there's one of a number of things can happen. Either the buyer can bring in the difference between the appraised value and the contract purchase price, which I would say I've seen happen more so in this market than I have in years before, whether they bring in the cash difference up to the purchase price, or whether they meet somewhere in the middle. But what happens, what I see most often is that when the appraisal comes in low, then the buyer then provides that appraisal to the seller, and they ask for a price reduction from the contract price that they offered initially to the appraised value. And again, it's like similar to what Liz said. I think last year we weren't seeing as much of a willingness for sellers to agree to that, but in 2021 I've seen that happen on occasion, on numerous occasions actually, and the sellers have agreed to go down to the appraised value.
Okay, thank you, BJ.
Okay, someone has asked kind of 3 different questions, so I'll try and merge them in there. Are there any down payment help programs? And I think we touched on that the lender is kind of the best person to talk to about those down payment assistance programs. How much does someone need for closing costs? And then what does contingent mean on a property for sale? Contingency.
Liz, can you take that?
Sure. I think what you might be asking on what does contingent mean on a property for sale, maybe when you're searching on a search engine and you see that as the label for a property. If I'm wrong, then I'll try to answer it a different way also. But typically, if you're on Zillow, for example, and you see that, it means an offer is accepted, and they may be open to backup offers. But in our market, the reality is they probably already have them. So most people, when they see that label on a house for sale on a search engine, might move on to the next one. It could also mean that they've accepted an offer, but it's contingent upon selling another property. And with that kind of agreement, they might have a clause in there that they can accept an offer from a new buyer and basically kick that first person out within a certain time period that's been predetermined. So it's something worth looking into, but it's hard to answer exactly the way it's asked. Hopefully that was helpful.
So is it worth kind of exploring a little? So say you find a property on realtor.com and it says contingent and you think that's your dream home. Is it worth having your agent check in on that, or what would be the steps to take?
If you think it's your dream home, then yes, it's definitely worth it. I would say most likely what would happen is if we're just, Corby will pretend that I'm working with you as your realtor. When we're first getting started, you'll probably have more questions like that because we haven't looked into any properties yet. And there may be 2 or 3 contingent ones that we'll research. But then as we get started, the properties we'll be looking at will be new on the market, and that will be easily answered that way. So yes, it is worth looking into, but don't get your hopes up.
Okay, great. And Kim, was there a second part to that question?
Yeah,
Or
that
did we get-
follow-up question was, how much does someone typically need for closing costs?
Deborah, do you want to take that?
Well, the lender will usually factor in, depending on what the down payment is, what the loan amount is, and then escrow is going to have some fees. There's going to be, title fees, which protects your interest in the property. The title is basically the birth certificate of the house. So it protects you from someone coming in and saying, wait, that person, I own part of that house. So there's a percentage that it will cost between title and escrow. And typically what I do is, we work with the lender and we get an estimate of that, because it'll be, several $1,000s most likely, just between title, escrow. And then they also prorate income taxes or property taxes. So when escrow closes, the seller has already paid property taxes for the year, most likely. And so when escrow closes, that title transfers to the buyer. They're going to prorate the property taxes that the seller has paid, and that's going to factor in also the day of the month that you close escrow. Your mortgage is going to have a daily interest rate, so that's going to factor in your insurance premiums. So I can't give you a firm number. It just depends on the price of the house, how much you're putting down, and that sort of thing. And we can kind of give a good estimate when we have those numbers somewhat upfront, and then they get fine-tuned towards the end, when you're actually getting ready to close. But you'll have a really good idea.
And the lender helps you get that number. Okay, great. Kim, looks like we have quite a few more questions.
Yeah, so this one says, one of the listings they saw was immediately adjacent to a property in a high fire severity zone. There seems to be some indication that zones are currently being updated by CAL FIRE. And what are the implications for such properties in the future? Could a property not currently in a high hazard zone be later rezoned into one?
If you don't mind, I'm happy to take that one.
Okay.
I'll tell you why. I actually own a property in the National Forest, which is a very high wildland fire zone. Most of Ventura County is not in that category. We do have high fire hazard areas. So yes, they are kind of looking at all that since the Thomas fire, since California is in severe drought and we have a lot of fires throughout the state. Insurers are not really wanting to cover homes that are near hillsides, although some do, but some won't. And the state has stepped in. There is a covered California plan or California Fair Plan that will help homeowners have insurance, because everyone's entitled to have insurance. So even in the forest where my vacation home is, you can get insurance, but it costs you a little bit more. So I would just say that, yes, depending on where you purchase, if you purchase on the hillside, you're going to have to hunt a little bit for insurance, but it's there. And then California Fair Plan is also there to protect consumers.
That's your good backup. Yes. Okay. What other questions are there, Kim?
Yes, someone's asking if they can't do the 20% down. They've heard that they can get a 3% to 5%. Just the challenge of doing a down payment in Ventura
So are
County.
there low down
If-
payment options essentially?
Mhm.
Do you need 20% down? Is that essentially the question?
Uh-huh.
Okay, BJ, you want to take that one?
I can answer that pretty easily. There's certainly, it's a good question, because there is a misconception, and there has been a long-standing misconception about the need and the requirement to buy a home with 20% down. There are certainly amazing programs out there with 3% down, 5% down, conventional. You have a 3.5% down FHA government insured loan product as well. So there's certainly other options out there that, you can go, 10%, 15, 20%, but you can do a minimum of between 3 and 3.5%. So there's great options out there. But talk to definitely have, that's one of the reasons why we prefaced it in the very beginning. Definitely have that conversation with the lender to see what your options are, what's required of you to get an idea of monthly payment. Because the fact of the matter is that if you're putting less money down, then your payment will likely be higher than it would be if you're putting down 20%, but that still may be affordable to you, and it still may be a better option than renting. So just certainly have a conversation with the lender. Yeah,
that's a good point, BJ. Certainly don't wait until you have 20% down. Talk to the lender and see what your options are. You might be ready to buy sooner than you think, based on some of the nice down payment programs out there. Okay, Kim?
Someone's asking about, can you get first-time home buyer assistance on top of what is offered by Coastal Housing?
I think it sounds to me, and Liz, correct me if I'm wrong, that this first-time home buyer assistance isn't really, pretty much the loans available are available to everyone. Coastal Housing benefits are available to all of employees of Coastal Housing Partnership, and usually we can reduce your closing costs by about 50%. So it's a nice benefit there, and please reach out to me. I can send you that information. In fact, when we send you the recording of this, I'm going to send you information about all of the Coastal Housing Partnership programs so that you can see how you can save money using those. Liz, do you feel I answered that, or did you want to? Okay, all right.
And then there's one that's pretty specific to this person's situation, asking about a down payment by tapping into 401k. Is there a situation where they would not place a tax burden on the down payment from 401k?
Well, I think that unless you all want to jump in there, I think this is one that you need to check in with your 401k plan administrator, as well as your lender, to get that question answered.
I'd agree with that.
Yep.
Okay.
And that's all the questions I see. Oh, sorry. No, there's more. Sorry. FEMA is completely reassessing flood zones to be more specific to each individual property rather than an area or neighborhood in general. Is this affecting home buyers now, and existing home owners may see it affect them in April of 2022? Do you know, have you heard about FEMA reassessing
So is this
flood
related
zones?
to flood insurance, essentially?
Well,
Is that what it sounds like?
It seems like it.
Yeah.
each property in the escrow process, part of the seller disclosures, you receive a natural hazard disclosure report. So that's your period to review these disclosures, and it will let you know all kinds of information, including if it falls into a flood zone area. So I think over the years they have changed, and they're probably changing again. But that's information that each property, the seller is required to provide a report, and it's not from the seller's knowledge. It's actually from a database, US Geological Survey, FEMA, a variety aggregation of data comes to each prospective buyer in the escrow process to review. And that will tell you if you need to have that kind of insurance. And you still are in that inspection period. So if it's something that's just not doable, you still have the opportunity to cancel if you're in a flood zone or something, and get your deposit back. I mean, we obviously don't want to have that happen, but it's part of what information we receive.
So that's your protection,
Inspection
essentially.
process.
And just a quick add, it seems like this person and the one that was asking about the fire zones are also talking about being rezoned later. Yes, we do see that happen sometimes. I don't know specifically about this person saying that it's going to happen in April of 2022, but flood zones do change and so do fire hazard zones for insurability purposes. So one person may pay a homeowner's insurance at one rate, and then they sell their home and find out that now they've been rezoned into a higher hazard rate, which then is more expensive to insure. Do you guys agree with that?
Yes.
Yeah, it just happens.
Great, thanks for that clarification. This is pretty sophisticated questions from you all. Thank you for being
Making us
so
earn
on
our
top
keep.
of things. Yeah. Kim, are there
I
any other
know,
questions?
we've received such great questions. This last one I think is for you, Corby. Are the coastal housing partnership benefits available independently? Can you work with a non-partner lender or a real estate agent, someone that's not in the network? Yeah.
So the Coastal Housing Partnership benefits for the savings on the closing costs are available to employees of member companies, and any company in Ventura County or Santa Barbara County can join Coastal Housing Partnership so their employees can use the programs. The benefits come directly from the network partners, from the real estate agents, home inspection companies, moving companies, lenders. And so if you're working with someone within our network, there's a savings to you. You certainly can work with someone out of network, but then the savings is not available to you. It doesn't come from Coastal Housing. It comes directly from the agents or the lenders. So I think that's what you're asking. It's a little bit like a PPO. If you're working within network, there's a savings. You don't have to, but then you don't achieve that savings. Any others
Great.
coming
And
in?
I think we have got, let's see. Oh, does that change in rate? Does the change in rates happen only with the sale of a home or also with policy renewal for existing owners?
I think they're asking
Insurance.
about fire and flood insurance, right?
I think so, yes.
It happens. I know that in some cases, your rates can change, just like your car insurance rates can change. It depends on various factors. Let's say you're in a fire hazard zone and you haven't done your brush clearance and your insurance adjuster comes out to look. Maybe you're now higher risk. They can adjust that. Let's suppose you had a claim against your home insurance for some reason, your rates can go up. So yeah, I think that insurance companies can adjust rates, depending on whatever the criteria is.
Okay. Great. Well, we have just gone over time a bit here. I want to express my gratitude to Deborah, Liz, and BJ for being such great panelists and a wealth of information. Just so grateful for you joining us today. And I appreciate all of the attendees joining us. We'll be sending you out a recording of today's webinar, and also happy to send you some information about how you can save money on your closing costs. So thanks for joining us. And we are available anytime you have questions about the home buying process.
Thank you all very much. Bye, guys. Nice to see you.
Nice to
Thanks,
see you.
everyone.
Thanks.